Hello and welcome to another World of Warplanes video with me, Sir 10 Death. Very recently, a few days ago, I reviewed a Russian Tier 4 multi-role fighter, the I-16L, which I'll put a link to in my video right now. And I said at the time I was going to look at some other Tier 4 multi-roles by way of comparison. So here's another one today. It's the British Hawker Hurricane Mark 1 multi-role fighter. As ever, there's going to be some gameplay footage going on in the background while I talk about what this plane does very well, what it doesn't do so well, and ultimately you can judge for yourself whether it's worth adding to your hangar or not. I actually unlocked this as part of the Skies of Albion event a few weeks ago, but because I've got a lot of planes in my hangar and I'm always trying to review different things, I haven't really got around to playing with it very much until the last couple of days. So I've stuck myself on a nice green and white stripy camouflage there because I thought it looks nice, and we're going to go off into the battle here and have a chat about this, and I will make comparisons to the I-16L along the way because I said that I would in my previous video. So there were 3 new British multi-roles introduced during that Skies of Albion event. This is the first one at Tier 4. There's the Hurricane 2, which I reviewed quite recently, which is at Tier 5, and there is the Tornado, which I haven't yet reviewed, but I have got in my hangar, and I'll get around to doing that at some point as well. On a general note, they all seem to be pretty effective and they're quite popular with the players out there. But as ever, you can judge this for yourself. So we've got the game underway now. We're just heading off to the first area, and I'm just going to try and put some damage. Now, the first thing you notice about these guns is they're all wing-mounted guns, which means they've got quite a considerable bit of dispersion. It's a bit of a trade-off. You've got a lot of guns, 8 of them to be precise, so you can't afford just to almost throw down a huge amount of lead into the sky and hope that something hits eventually, but they do spread quite a lot, and you need to adapt to that a little bit. Rather than doing vast amounts of damage to a pinpoint accuracy, you're going to do little bits of damage, unless you can get right on the tail of somebody, which I do manage to do once or twice in this game anyway. So let's have a chat about this then. When you get the plane as stock, it has 200 hit points, which at Tier 4 is pretty nice. I like that a lot. And when you upgrade the airframe, that becomes 220. When you bear in mind that the I-16 I talked about the other day only has 140, that's nearly 50% more hit points, which is very, very well worth having. Maneuverability rating, the stock is 62. When again you play around with the engine and the airframe, that becomes 64, which is less than the I-16, but it's manageable enough. You will find that there are times when you almost get into a bit of a turning contest. If you try and get into a turning contest with a light fighter, you'll probably lose, although you will see an example of that in the very near future. Its turn time then is 10.5 seconds as stock, which drops down to 10.3 when upgraded. So it has a suggested altitude fighting of about 900 meters, which is pretty much where I am at the minute, and it has a speed of about 240 kilometers, and when you upgrade the engine it becomes about 260, so it's a little bit slower and a little bit less maneuverable than the I-16 that I reviewed recently. Guns wise, pretty nice. Even the stock guns, it has 8.303mm wing-mounted guns that shoot at 600 rounds per minute over a distance of 440 meters, which is pretty nice. The guns can be upgraded once for a small amount of XP, which basically just gives you a tiny increase in damage output. The distance of 440 meters stays exactly the same. The rate of fire at 600 rounds per minute stays exactly the same. The only difference is that you go from doing 23 damage per second up to 25, so a slight increase, but obviously well worth having. Everything helps. Outboard ordnance wise, this is carrying 2 250-pound bombs. You can see them mounted below the wings on this. There they are. And in this actual game, I don't think I used them once. I've always said when I play multi-roles, I tend to play them more as fighters, unless a ground target really presents itself to me and happens to be right in front of me, and then I will drop my bombs or my rockets. But I'm doing a lot of dogfighting right now, so there's an example of that maneuverability. To turn around and get behind this guy took just a little bit longer than it would in most other planes, but of course it is unfair to compare a multi-role with a light fighter because they're not the same kind of aircraft. So, in terms of this game so far, I haven't done anything stunningly good. I'm on 3,000 combat points. I've done my little bit, but nothing amazing. Now, here's an example of where I've got myself into a turning contest with a P-40. Very luckily for me, the P-40, which actually is a fighter aircraft, and I love that plane. I will put a review into it right now. The P-40 has about the same maneuverability as this, around about 63, 64. So, although I can't outturn him, he can't outturn me. He eventually decides to break off the engagement, and that's probably a bad idea for him because I get a lot of shots into him, and that means he gets finished off. So we're doing okay here. We've done well, just under 4,000 combat points, and it's just letting you see what this plane can do quite effectively. I mentioned earlier about the dispersion of the guns. In my opinion, it doesn't matter too much, because an example like this person in front obviously does not want to be shot down. He's weaving, bobbing left and right to try and get out of the way. You can afford with these guns to just keep your finger on the mouse button and strafe the area. Just throw the lead out there and it's going to eventually hit. Something's going to hit, do some damage eventually, because these guns do not overheat very quickly at all. It takes a lot to make them overheat, and you'll see examples of this when I'm just holding the trigger down. That little box on the left hand side of the screen at the bottom there isn't even going anywhere near the red zone. Just got the class 5 multi-role fighter award, which is nothing startling, but you know, every little helps. And so far I'm having a pretty good game. I'm quite pleased with this. Things are going quite well. I've taken very little damage so far. I've stayed in this middle area pretty much the whole game, because I am just trying to defend it basically. Nearly 7,000 combat points now, and things are looking pretty rosy. Now I will tell you, I'll give you a bit of a spoiler here. I do make a very silly mistake a little bit later on, which I left in deliberately just to show you an example of what can go wrong. So even against a heavy fighter, when you can get onto his tail, you can tear him out of the sky. Nearly have passed 7,500 combat points now, and still just dotting from target to target and having fun, doing as much as I can. Now, that guy here went for ramming me. I haven't got the maneuverability to get out of the way, and he took about half my hit points off me in doing so, which I'm going to suffer a little bit from that. But in an I-16, for example, that would have knocked me out of the sky. It would have killed me. I survived it in the Hurricane 1. And now I have got somebody on my tail. I'm struggling to get away from them. I'm trying to weave and bob and try to do what I can just to try and stay out of trouble, but it's looking pretty grim. It's not looking like it's going to end very well for me. And I decided to try and go through this little gap in the mountains in the hope that if somebody's behind me, that either they fly into a mountain or it looks like I've got away from this and I've dodged the trouble, and then I get taken down by a guy in the P40. The P40, the chap on the other team, is the one person who's actually having a pretty good game for them. The rest of his team is not very good at all. But I'm on quite a lot of combat points, about nearly 8,000, about 8,000 of them. I'm pretty pleased with that. And this is where I make that catastrophic error that I mentioned earlier. There is a ground attack plane trying to take back this base from us, and I do the right thing in the fact that I'm going down there and trying to knock him out of the sky. Unfortunately, because of the speed of my plane compared to his, I'm approaching fast. I'm holding down the S key for the air brakes, I'm holding down the F for the flaps, and my engine gets damaged, and it's too late for me to realise. Now I should have left that engagement a lot earlier, and but I left it in, as I said, deliberately to kind of show you, if you've got a damaged engine, how much you lose some of your manoeuvrability. And when I try to turn out of that combat, I simply couldn't get out in time. Ended up ramming into the back of a ground attack aircraft, which is ridiculously silly in this plane. But these things do happen. Sometimes it's worth leaving in something funny in the gameplay. Because I don't always have perfect games, I don't have amazing games all of the time. So I'm back to going to work here. We've got the Guardian Award and just past 9,000 combat points. And as ever, I'm doing what I tend to prefer doing an awful lot of the time in fighters and multi-roles, and just trying to keep this base guarded. I've spent 90% of this entire game in this sector just shrugging off enemy planes. Now, I'm not a one-man band. This is a whole team effort, and as a team we played pretty well. But I feel that I've done a pretty solid job actually of managing to keep this area well protected, and that's testament to this plane. This plane, the Hurricane 1, then, is a really good rugged little fighter multi-role fighter plane that can do this job very well. It can shoot down and get rid of enemy planes quite easily. Had they happened to manage to take this area, I've got my couple of bombs to help to take it back. The guns won't do a whole lot against ground targets, little bit, but against a plane like this, now here's me approaching a ground attack for the second time. This time I'm doing the right thing. I'm slowed right down with my air brakes and my flaps, and I haven't got any engine damage, so I can just sit behind him and just do everything necessary to get rid of him. So this game's winding to a close now. It's looking pretty comfortable for us. We're on the 700 cap points, superiority points, and I'm just just finishing off, mopping up these guys. The squall line is in place now, so it's really a case of just protecting what we've got and winning by points, or just finishing off everybody that's still left in the game, of which there are still a handful of them. So as I said earlier, I didn't use these bombs once in the game. Let's mention the bombs though. It does carry two 250-pound bombs, and They are each capable of doing 2,200 damage, so they are quite formidable. You can pretty much use those couple of bombs to take maybe a medium armoured area on your own. So to support a ground attack or a bomber, they are quite useful, but they do have, as they tend to have on multi-rolls, a ridiculously long minute and a half or so's reload time. So almost at the end, I'm just going after this P40. He's the one guy on their team that actually had a pretty solid game. Hats off to him if he happens to be watching this. Just trying to get him out of there. And unfortunately that's it. But a whole string of awards. What are we? 14,000 combat points. The standard, pretty common awards on the left hand side. These are all ones you don't work hard to get. Only finished second on the team actually, but I did manage to get the Flying Guardian badge, the Winged Legend for passing 14,000 combat points, I can't pronounce that one, the Guardian and the Kozolebs medal, whatever it's called. And this is a tech tree non-premium plane, and it's pulled in 92,000 credits, 5,000 XP. Pretty good. All for destroying things while defending. So, would I recommend trying this out? Certainly would, yes. I mean, I did say that the I-16L the other day is okay. It's a decent multi-roll at tier 4. In my opinion, this one's even better. But that is just my opinion. If you want to really try these things for yourself, you're going to have to go down those lines and unlock them. But you've seen the gameplay, you've seen what the Hurricane 1 can and can't do, and it's well worth a try in my opinion, and I know that it's very popular amongst a lot of players in the game at present. As ever, thank you very much for watching. Cheers now, goodbye.